Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today, we are joined by my special guest, Vodka, and I will absolutely need their help, because today we are talking about brand new studio album from cringecore icons Motionless in White, entitled Scoring the End of the World. And, it's really fucking cringe. I first came to know Motionless in White back in 2013 after having seen them at the Rockstar Energy Drink Mayhem Festival in Toronto, Ontario. For whatever reason, there was pretty low attendance on this particular stop of this touring festival, and unfortunately things didn't change even as big-name rock and metal bands like Rob Zombie, Mastodon, and Five Finger Death Punch began to perform on the main stage. The only time things did begin to change was when Motionless in White began their set, at which point a relatively empty Molson Canadian amphitheater was suddenly overflowing with kids who looked like they just found out what Hot Topic and Edward Scissorhands were. And then the moment Motionless in White finished their set, they all fucking left. Why? I don't know. Where did they go? I don't fucking know. But it was kind of incredible, if we're being brutally honest. I've never seen that many people show up for one particular band and then immediately leave. In all of my years of going to concerts, that has never happened to me at any other fucking concert. Somewhat ironically, I don't remember anything about Motionless in White and their actual performance that day. As far as the music is concerned, I've also never thought much of Motionless in White. It's very paint-by-numbers kind of metalcore, pop metal, alternative metal with a lot of influence from Linkin Park, Bring Me the Horizon, Marilyn Manson, all kind of thrown into a blender and served quite sloppily. I mean, there are bits and pieces of their last two studio albums, Disguise and Graveyard Shift, that I kind of enjoyed, that I didn't hate at the very least, but I would not consider myself a fan. That being said, I still tried to go into this record with some optimism and some enthusiasm because, you know, I like music. I like exploring new music, and I like being proven wrong. Like, I never gave a shit about Behemoth until they dropped The Satanists, and now I love Behemoth. I'm wearing a piece of Behemoth jewelry right fucking now. For one, production-wise, it's their biggest album yet. More guitars, more synthesizers, more drums, more everything. A lot of guest stars on the record. You've got Caleb Shomo from Beartooth, Brian Garris from Knocked Loose, Lindsay Schoolcraft, a Canadian Juno Award-winning singer, songwriter, solo artist, also a former member of Cradle of Filth. Even Mick Gordon of Doom Eternal and Wolfenstein fame makes an appearance on the album's title track. And secondly, because by the band's own admission, this is their most politically charged record to date. When asked by Alt Press about what specific topics and events provided fuel for this record, Chris Motionless responded, "World leaders failing to handle the pandemic, capitalism which makes us feel like we're packaged and sold, and our suffering is profited off of to make rich people richer. Corporations are buying housing and middle-class families can't buy a home anymore. Pharmaceutical abuse, it's one thing after another. There's a small group of people who are benefiting from all of it, and essentially it feels like we're living in a fucking slaughterhouse where we are the cattle." You also had George Floyd, which signed a massive spotlight on racism and abuse, and most recently you had things like Roe v. Wade. Like, damn, Chris, I did not at all think that Motionless in White, of all fucking bands, had their fingers on the pulse of the United States of America right now. I gotta give a little credit to you right off the bat. You're paying attention. I like that. You're angry. I like that. What I don't like, however, is that everything you're talking about, everything that we have mentioned so far in this video about this album has been absolutely wasted on an absolute suckfest of a record. So much of a suckfest that, honestly, I don't even really know where to really begin talking about this record. Let's start at the literal beginning of this record to make life easy. The opening track, Meltdown, an obnoxious cyber goth rager. It kind of sounds like Motionless in White trying to write a song for the opening scene of Blade. It's very, very dumb, very corny, very cheesy, very cringy. Robert No Like out of 10. That's the score for this song. It's eerily similar in some ways to Rainy Day from Ice Nine Kills, which I want to believe is a coincidence, and it probably is, to be fair. Once again, maybe the vodka is trying to warp my brain right now, but knowing Motionless in White and knowing that they don't have a lot of original bones in their body, I can't help but wonder if they maybe heard that track and said, yeah, what if we put a little this in there? What if we put a little bit of that in there? And what if that's just ours now? The same can absolutely be said for We Become the Night and Red, White, and Boom, which are so obviously inspired by Marilyn Manson that I would not be shocked at all if Marilyn Manson were to sue Motionless in White. The irony is, from what I understand, Chris Motionless doesn't really like being compared to Marilyn Manson, but it's hard not to make that comparison when he literally does the most perfect, exact replication of Marilyn Manson's vocal style. It doesn't help either that there are beats and sound effects that absolutely replicate things that I've heard on records like Antichrist Superstar and Mechanical Animals in Hollywood. I mean, both of these tracks are basically just more radio-friendly versions of Marilyn Manson songs. Like, that's all I'm hearing, at least. I'm going to single out Red, White, and Boom for a moment because, holy shit, the cringe factor is off the charts with this one. It is straight up just a Marilyn Manson song with a Linkin Park-style chorus and some really terrible fucking lyrics. I mean, sometimes they have something poignant to say, like, you know, they'll say something here like, the difference between medicine and poison is the dose. Our carpal tunnel vision is our social suicide, so smile for the camera, aim it right between the eyes. That's not bad, that's not horrible, but then moments later you get something like, please keep your hopes and dreams inside the vehicle at all times. Free will is no longer permitted on this ride. 1, 2, fuck you. It's like pure Marilyn Manson BS with a side order of five-finger Death Punch edge metal buffoonery. Oh, also, the aforementioned Caleb Shomo is on this track. What does he do to save this? Absolutely fucking dick all. That's what. So moving on. Speaking of both collabs and cringe, let's talk about Slaughterhouse featuring Brian Garris of Knocked Loose. Holy shit. This thing feels like a Molotov cocktail in sonic form, by which I mean I feel like I've been hit with a Molotov cocktail because I am in genuine pain after having heard this. I do kind of like how rabid this thing is. I mean, it has the intensity and the jagged edges of like an early Slipknot cut in some ways, but holy shit, that chorus is so fucking bad, so fucking generic. One of the most paint-by-numbers kind of post-hardcore pop metal choruses I think I've heard on anything in a while. Brian Garris, to his credit, is doing his best here. He is screaming his fucking heart out, but there's little he can do to really save this track once that chorus kicks in. And once you really begin to analyze the absolute word salad that this thing is, lyrically speaking. I mean, it's a bunch of nonsensical jibber-jabber about wanting to just kill everything, everyone's a fascist, everyone's a pig. You know, there's an opportunity for something much more poignant and provocative here, obviously, and it's not really capitalized on. Even the Knock Loose style breakdown at the very end is just not really that effective, and it doesn't help, mind you, that this is very clumsily and awkwardly stapled on. If it makes you feel better, Brian, your talent is not the only talent that goes to absolute fucking waste here. The title track, Scoring the End of the World, featuring Mick Gordon. I would not have known Mick Gordon was on this track if I did not know in advance. Like, straight the fuck up. Like, there is nothing on this track that screams Mick Gordon to me, which is a shame because, you know, Everything Mick Gordon does has such a unique feel and vibe. Even when he's produced cuts for Bring Me the Horizon and Monuments, when he pops up, I know that it's Mick Gordon. Here, not at all. I don't know how you did it, Motionless in White, but you somehow made Mick Gordon completely unrecognizable, and that in and of itself is a bit of an accomplishment, I guess, so round of applause. You made one of the most distinct composers and producers of this modern era feel and sound like an absolute fucking nobody. Congratulations. One of the few collabs on this record that actually takes advantage of the talents of the collaborator in question would be Cyberhex featuring Lindsay Schoolcraft. When she shows up with all of her operatic howls, this begins to have the scale and the cinematic scope of like a Cradle of Filth track. With all the muscular riffs and pummeling percussion, I would say I'm even reminded of World War X era Carnifex. It's derivative, duh, but it is to its credit one of the stronger moments on this entire record. Unfortunately, you have to sift through a bunch of stupid nonsense in order to get to this. More so than any other track on this record, this thing is just completely nonsensical word salad jibber jabber. I've no idea what Motionless in White is talking about on this track. It feels like a bunch of like demos from like 90s industrial bands all kind of clumsily thrown together, like tossed like a chopped salad. The chorus is trying so hard to be big and dynamic and cinematic, and instead I can't help but sit here and giggle at it because I'm just like, bro, what the fuck is happening? There's also Burned at Both Ends 2 and BTFG Corpse Nation, which are apparently sequels to tracks that Motionless in White have previously released. I don't really remember the original tracks off the top of my head. Thank you, Vodka, for that. But I can tell you that, all things considered, these are probably some of the better tracks on the record. The former of which is a very moody kind of post-hardcore rager with some kind of ripping, almost Swedish death metal style riffs on the latter half that, I don't know, I kind of enjoyed. It's got that OG kind of early 2000s metalcore feel and vibe to it. It's not amazing, it's not mind-blowing, but it's better. The latter of which definitely feels like something that Motionless in White wrote after listening to a bunch of Ice Nine Kills and watching The Nightmare Before Christmas, but, you know, whatever. It's one of the more consistent tracks on the record. I don't hate the chorus. It's not as obnoxious or as overblown as other tracks on the record, so fuck it, why not? I also find myself not completely hating tracks like Werewolf and Masterpiece, the former of which is a smooth, slinky kind of pop rock banger, the latter of which is a somewhat stereotypical but slightly effective post-hardcore ballad. Are they good? No, but they are consistent, and at the very least they don't inspire the same levels of cringe that other tracks we've mentioned thus far do. I'm sure the people who love Motionless in White will not be deterred by my words and by my criticisms, and honestly, more fucking power to ya. You have proven, by my own admission, that you are an incredibly determined and dedicated bunch, and I respect that. But I am not going to be dishonest about my opinion, and my opinion is that this is a very bad record. With some bright spots, but a bad record nonetheless. So 1.5 out of 5, it's cringy, it's overblown, it's overproduced, it's just really, 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 really dumb. Even the tracks that I kind of, sort of enjoyed, or at least didn't hate, I found semi-annoying on repeat listens. And stuff like Slaughterhouse and Red, White, and Boom especially, oh my god, I literally could not make it through these tracks on my second and third listen of this record. Like, I skipped over big, huge chunks of these fucking tracks, because they are just extremely, really not good. Like Anthony Fantano wearing red flannel levels of not good. Clearly I'm in the minority, because Motionless in White is a big deal. Lots of people buy their records and check them out live. Good for those people. Go listen to this record. Fucking enjoy it. Sing your fucking hearts out, by all means. If you're like me and you've never really been convinced of the awe-inspiring power of Motionless in White, this record would not do a fucking thing for you. 1.5 out of 5. It's got bright moments, but overall I would say it's a pretty bad record. Like, yeah. Yeah. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. My lip is cut a little bit, so that vodka's really stinging. Let me know what you think of this record. Did you like it? Did you not like it? And what do you want to hear from me next? Thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you can get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately in case you somehow aren't already. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.